These didn't want to work. Now they do. I think they do. I'm really actually excited about today. We're gonna have some creepy circus music in the background and everything. Should be good. Oh boy. So I'm gonna be talking a lot about these awesome products that we can stuff inside the lights today, and we're gonna have a good time. Very much looking forward to it. So let me pop out chat here, see what's up to my dudes that are hanging out. I can tell you this too, I kind of like showing up a minute or two behind, just cause. I don't know, it seems to be the element. Al says, what's up Lightsman community? Kim Haswell in the house says, Contold bro. Okay. Sinister says, hey me Aldevern, how you doing today? Mr. Aldevern. We got Ricardo, we got Hunter K in the house, we got Adam Board, we got Garforce the second, Jake in the house. So you guys, what's up? He's always late. You know what I mean? I can't rely on the YouTube algorithm. What would that be like? That'd be ridiculous. I have some super good news. That music is creeping me out. Car Coalition, what's up? So I'm gonna be talking about some of the stuff that I've seen in the Facebook group, which is dope. If you don't know about the Facebook group, I'm about to show it right now. A little thing about Sequential Squad. And if you're watching this as a replay, comment below. I'm watching the replay, and I just found out about Sequential Squad. There it is. Check it out. It's glorious. So, here's the thing. A lot of the people in the group in Facebook have been talking about different stuff that they can put in the lights. I saw one guy this morning, I actually commented on his video, and his kind of point was just to share, right? To just show us what he had going on. He had a lot of different parts in there. And I've seen some other people asking some pretty basic questions in there too, which I love because they get quick, easy answers to. And I find that when people have too many things going on in their lights, it's kind of harder to answer those particular questions. So today I'm going to talk about lots of different stuff that can be inside the actual lights, get your feedback, talk to you guys a whole bunch in chat, ask you questions if you've dealt with this kind of part, if you've dealt with just any issues or anything like that. And we're going to give a couple different examples of products that work really great to kind of like support a big giant like focal piece, right? So we're talking about Sequential Squad. Generally anything sequential is going to be like the main attraction, like whoa, that's crazy, I can't believe that thing just zipping around and doing all this awesome stuff. But I've got a bunch of stuff on my bench. So we've got Angel Eyes, we've got HID ballasts, we've got obviously this crazy little boomerang part, which is cool enough, a switchback part, so it will change from white to amber, which I think is super dope. And we've got a whole bunch of other stuff, not to mention our little remote control setups, which I think are pretty dope. Check this out. You can simulate turn signal with the remote control. Why? Because I finally figured out how to set up the momentary switch. It's gonna be interesting. Anyway, what kind of parts do you guys use in chat that are watching right now on your typical builds? I know Sinister uses stuff that like literally other people don't even know exists. Actually, I've seen quite a few of you guys use like the crazy acrylic panels and stuff like that. DJ Boom, what up, sir? We got John Paul in the house, William Brown in the house from the east side. Nice. Very cool. So I want to hear about what kind of stuff you guys are using. Specifically, I'm going to show you two different examples of something right now. These have become super popular. These are 3-wire addressable RGB rings. So you'll see a lot of these guys. Mohammed watching from Trinidad and Tobago also. Right down there by Al. That's an interesting thing that like the information gets pumped around out there. I'm guessing Al's kind of stirring up some attention for your boy. But these are parts from Automotive Custom Lighting, ACL as we know them. and they have 3 wires going in: power, ground, and data. Cool thing is they have power coming in, or data in, and data out. So you can daisy chain these things together so that you can actually start something on one LED, wrap it around, and then start on the other LED and wrap it around so that they go sequentially. Very cool. I mean, or you can make them do it at the same time. Just depends on how you set them up using something like Blue Ghost. The important part about what I'm going to talk about right now is how many wires are there on this. We've got 3 coming into them, and then there's going to be another 3 that go between them, and then another 3 coming out of them to hit the next part, which means that we might also have some other stuff. Actually, these guys, I told them I was going to get these and put them on the stream, so hold on. Yeah, these are super cool angel eyes. I'm just kidding, those are old school. All right, here we go. So this is from BTF Lighting. I actually showed these quite a while back. And the interesting thing is that this company makes all kinds of cool stuff. Just the other day, I had talked about what kind of connectors you guys use in your custom wire harnesses, and somebody actually linked up these connectors from BTF Lighting, which is cool because they've got a lot of cool components that makes our job easier as builders, kind of bridging everything together and connecting all the stuff that I'm about to show you. So in the case that you are working with something like this, granted these are going to be a little bit different. You've got 12 volt and you've got 5 volt addressable RGB stuff. These ones right here are going to be your 5 volt. Snare Kid, what's up? Watching from United Arab Emirates. What up? So check this out. Here's another shot at it. It's just all these addressable RGB LEDs. And so they would complement something like these. Pretty cool, because then you could have rings and you can have strips. But in any case, if you do have those, look at those wires that you got going in. Power, ground, and data with an additional, looks like, power and ground going into them, so that you can give them as much power as they need as they're going through the light. Which means complicated wiring. That's the punchline to all of this stuff. We've got complicated wiring. Lots of parts going in there. The other thing is, what you don't see a lot of times on things like this that are addressable, where it's just using a data wire to do all of the thinking for you. Parts that don't have data, they have these guys. They have modules. And a module is going to do the thinking for that part. So I'll show you this real quick. So very much like our little boomerang here, we've got a switchback ring. Both of these are profile parts made by Morimoto. The retrofit source, however you want to label it. I'm going to give this thing power and ground really quick, just like I did with this one. I gave that one power, and then I changed it to amber, and then it will switch back to white afterwards. So just like that, we're going to hook up power and ground here on this ring. I'm going to give power to white, and then anytime, geez, it's blinding. Anytime the amber hits, it's going to change it to amber, right? So we've got switchback. So the idea is, if we have the ability to do like a little toggle, like on this guy, we can just hit that little momentary bit of power to get it to change from white to amber, and then ideally it switches back to white. That's exactly what's happening here. And we do all of this internally inside the actual headlight because of this little module. So if you've got, let's say, 4 RGB or 4 switchback parts, and each of them has a driver, that's going to take up a bunch of room inside the lights. So maybe you're going to mount them outside the light. But maybe you've got some addressable stuff going on too, and then you've got a Bluetooth controller, and you've got those 3 power, ground, and data wires that are coming out the actual light. And then let's just say you happen to have some HIDs. Some nice, big, strong HIDs. Check out this ballast. This is one of the best ballasts that you can have for HIDs. because it's not going to give you a bunch of crap on your car, depending on what style it is. It's got a nice little ground connection that you can do so that it's going to have just trouble-free usage on the car, and then just plugs right into your HID bulbs like normal. You power it with the same thing like most HID kits have. This is a Hilux ballast. Here's the thing, I bring this up because maybe you've got some switchback components in your lights. You also have some RGB components in your lights, and you also have HIDs. Now all these systems have to play nice together. Who's built lights that are overcomplicated? That's what I want to know. Aside from Sinister, because we all know he has. Car Collision says BTF is great. Yusuf says, hi from London, constantly watching your videos and try to learn some Yeah. The Snare Kid says that he's in UAE. Mr. Al says, Mohammed, where in TNT are you from, bro? See? Connecting people across the planet. Down in South America. Good times. DIY People says, hello. Hello, DIY People. Alright, you guys are getting right along. So, Sinister just says, laugh out loud. Car Collision says, couldn't you just rewire each part to use one module? Definitely not. Because check it out. You've got switchback. This has a certain amount of LEDs in it, right? How many LEDs are white? How many are amber? I don't know. But this little box right here that powers it. Oh, it's down here. You can't see it. There you go. There's a little module right here that has the exact amount of resistors needed to safely run all of the white LEDs and amber LEDs in this part. And like, look at this part. It's like bendy. Look, it can like hold a shape. This is for a 370Z. The idea is that this module does all the thinking for you. You don't have to know the exact amount of resistors. And this ring that I have here has the same exact thing. It's got a little box full of resistors that are going to keep it safe. And it's also got the little capacitor and all the things inside to make it interrupt that white LED every time it sees the turn signal. So you have to have this, and you have to have this one. That's a terrible noise in the background. And the idea is if you've got 3 parts that are all sequential and you want them to work perfect, you probably shouldn't just chop all the ends off, hope that you've counted up the right amount of resistors, and then make them all work together. Because if you do that, number one, you're going to kill your warranty on those products, which I don't recommend for most things. But number two is you're going to have to be super dope at math and reverse engineering. And by the way, you can't take these things apart and look at what's inside of them. They're all potted, so it's kind of like a hidden, like little mystery thing. You can't actually tell. So just look at my bench right now. We've got all this stuff going on. We've got ballasts right here. These things take up a bunch of space in the engine bay. Then we've got these guys. If they're going to be run outside the car, then they're going to be taking up space in there. We've got a little remote control unit right here. We've got the box for these little boomerang parts as well. And so all this stuff can get really, really crazy. This HID unit can throw some weird ground signals when it gets like a big spike in voltage as soon as you turn it on. And that can actually run through where all of this stuff is kind of connected together and end up shorting out something like one of the LEDs on a demon eye or something, for example. Lots of weird stuff happens when you add something like HIDs into the mix, because now it's not just 12 volts, that thing's actually pumping up voltage hardcore. And still to this day, right now, putting HID bulbs in your lights is going to give you a better outcome than LED bulbs. LED bulbs don't have that giant spike in voltage. They don't have a big ballast to run everything, but they're definitely not as good. Like, they don't have the downside as the HID. They don't have the high heat, which is also the enemy of all this stuff, but they definitely are easy to work with. LEDs are great because you could just twist the thing in. Some of them don't even have drivers. They're just straight from the bulb right to the actual power source. That's sick. That makes life way, way easier, because now you're not worried about running all of this crazy stuff through your car, which I gotta say, awesome as this is, it's not worth it to me as the guy that is either going to be doing the install or maintaining and keeping up, to have 8 million little components inside the actual lights as well. But this also, to bring it all home, yeah, Adam Board says HIDs all the way. So to bring it all home, I don't think that you should put all these parts in your lights. That was like the question of the video, is like, what parts should you put in there? Like, pick 2. I don't know. I definitely say if you're building these for other people, do not give them everything that they ask for, because they don't know. They're coming to you to build the lights because they don't know. And then you're looking at managing all of this stuff, all these different technologies. You've got something that's going to be Bluetooth addressable. You're going to need to have a little module that does all that, whether that's Blue Ghost or something from BTF. You've got to have something that sends data down that data wire and tells all those LEDs what to do. And if you've got switchback stuff, you just wire it up right to the power and ground and turn signal wires inside the light. Keep everything internal. If you do a good job and you don't have too many products, you can actually have all that stuff wired up inside and not have a single wire running outside of your light, which will give you the only version of custom lights that is actually plug and play. Plug and play is this completely misunderstood concept for people that buy this stuff. I got a very long email. I'm not going to read it to you. I barely even read it. I get lots of these. Came in last night. A guy bought a set of lights from his buddy. His buddy bought them from a builder who apparently made them where they were supposed to be plug and play. Clearly that was not communicated properly at all on either party, because from the sound of it, there's a million wires. There's all kinds of crazy components like this. That's why I'm doing this video, because of these emails and the questions that I see in the Facebook group. And like, they're thinking that you can just plug these things on and they're going to work like magic. But all these modules that I was just talking about, they all have to get power and ground. A lot of times those power and ground connections are coming from the same point, which means if there can be any backfeeding, any weird stuff going on as a result of having all these things together, it's going to happen. You're going to have one thing that messes with the other. And so the more stuff you add into that big concoction, it's kind of like mixing soda when you're a kid. Like, maybe if you mix some Fanta and some Sprite, you get this like extra fizzy, limey, strawberry thing going on, and you're like, dope. But then you mix in root beer and Dr. Pepper and like, I don't know, some high C punch or whatever, and like, you've got yourself some gross beverage, right? Don't build gross beverages. I should just walk away now. End stream. That's it. Thought over. I'd like your comments on that. Do you ever build disgusting beverages? If you're watching the replay, comment below. How many components have you stuffed into one set of lights? That's a question for you. Mod Auto says, that's why I label all connections by numbers so people can follow the numbers. I got you. I understand. I'm looking for something that I could show you real quick. I don't got it. I'm not going to look for it. What I have found has been the most efficient way to not lose in the long run, but to lose in the short run so that you can make it easy for other people, is if you are going to build a circus, build a disgusting beverage, and you put all this crap in there, you should start using big dog connectors. 16 pin, 12 pin, couple of those. Now you got 30 pins going on, and you consolidate all of these modules so that they're getting hooked up to a wire harness that truly does plug into that wire harness. What a lot of builders do is they say, yo, check it out. I got a ring. I can mount this ring easy. There's little mounting points. I'm just gonna stick it in the light, and then I'm gonna just drill a hole, and then this light, or this little connector, this little 2-wire JST, is gonna go through a hole that I drill in the back of the light. Then I'm gonna mount this little module right here and just tap it right into their power and ground for their running light and their turn signal. And then all that the customer ever has to do is just plug that in, right? So now here's what you have. A big stupid tag that you need to keep, because it actually, in most cases, might have some information on what the module is. In this case, the module actually says 80mm switchback, 330 milliamps, and it gives you a big stupid serial number. but it basically connects this stuff together. That's not a watertight connection. That's not something that is foolproof. Like look at the travel on those wires. That's just me pushing in and out. Actually, no, that's the shielding. But there's some movement inside the pins in there. And there's some exposed stuff. So if water gets on this one droplet of water, man, 2-pin JSTs are the worst for this. One droplet of water can bridge that power and ground, which may not fry the ring. It might mess with it, but it will definitely fry this guy. And depending on where this thing is mounted and how easy it is to get to, now something that was easy to build, even the easiest of lights, you got some little switchback angel eyes in there. You ship it off to the dude, he's got his module, he's chilling, and then 7 months from now, it's rainy season, and this thing goes out, and who is blowing you up? Who's talking crap about you on social media and saying that you are the worst, like, thief? You are just so bad because he built lights and now your lights are disgusting because blah blah blah. Like, people freak out and say, especially, it was my experience that certain guys that just knew very little about what they were paying for were the worst offenders at this. But they will be very, very quick to call you out and say that you are so bad, all because they are afraid to disconnect that and swap out the 3 wires that are plugged into their light to replace the driver. And you've made it very easy for them. Here's the problem. You messed up, bro. It should never be on them to mess with any of this stuff. And they're not correct to put you on blast. But if you could put that thing internally, keep it safe, keep it away from water, do all of that stuff. And then if you do need to run anything to that, like for example, like a RGB driver on, let's say the ring changes color, well, my friend, it will definitely not be plug and play now, because now you've got 4 or 5 wires going to that product, and then an extra ground wire, and potentially an extra turn signal wire. With the case of these WRX lights, all of those components, all those modules, there's no way they're all going to fit inside the actual lights. They're not going to fit with the ghost module. They're not going to fit with pretty much anything because there's too much stuff. But I don't want my guy to have to know any of the connections on there or have to mess with it. So instead you use these connectors that will take all the different stuff together. It's got your RGB angel eyes. It's got maybe even your switchback stuff. Maybe you want to control them with something else. Maybe you have a little strobe controller in there and you want it to send power to something that normally only gets power from the parking lights, so that you can push a button on a remote control and now it's strobing back and forth. You can add all of this stuff in there, but then you have to take the extra step to make those waterproof connectors, cut everything to length, make sure that everything's all tucked away nice, and now you can actually just continue on and not have to worry about if something goes wrong, then you're telling the guy what to hunt down, because now Mod Auto says everything's labeled, cool story, until guy starts digging around in there and something got pulled loose or whatever, and now he's hunting and pecking for what a connector is. Try to explain to somebody what a relay is. That's difficult. They're like, is it this? Is it this? Is it that? And so this stuff can get completely out of hand really, really quick. See what you guys got to say in chat. Snare Kid says, actually, that's why I watch, so I won't make a gross beverages. So how do you feel about mil-spec connections instead of those big block style connectors? Honestly, I don't even care what you use as long as it doesn't take a ridiculous amount of time to set up, and as long as it's gonna be trouble-free for the guy down the road. Whether that's like, God, this is such stupid music, but whether that's like it's got like the weatherproof seal, or if it's like the little barrel connectors that like lock and go together like that, just as long as it's not gonna get shorted out by a little bit of rain or water splashing up. A huge problem with custom lighting in general, like just straight up across the board, is it's custom automotive lighting, and the guys that are doing custom lights are also doing other custom things like suspension, and a lot of times they have fitment on crazy wheels and stuff like that, and they just pull their fender liners, and then they're like, oh yeah, well the fender liners were rubbing, so I just took them off. Sweet. Well, now every time you run over a puddle of water, all of these ballasts and modules and things like that that are safely under the light, they're just getting blasted. And so definitely not a good thing, and you've got to assume that that's what's going to happen to your connectors. I've literally had a GTR send back lights to me so that I could fix the damage on the lights that I built for the guy. And it was like one of these things where it was like almost like positioned to where it was my fault. The dude's tire, he had no wheel liners on, but his tire, when he turned it like full cock to the left or whatever, like rubbed against the actual, like the whole area behind the light, and the wire harness that had everything going through it, it chewed through that in seconds. It just ate all the wires. I mean, what are you going to do with that, right? Waterproof plugs aren't going to help you there. So it does really come down to kind of explaining all this stuff to your customers. Do they know that if they get all the things, and you might be thinking in your head, especially if you're a builder, you might be thinking in your head dollar signs like, oh, they want to add this, they want to add that, they want to add this. I encourage any builders out there to stop looking at like, I can get more money for this build, and rather to have some sort of base prices and stuff like that, and say, the further we go down this build, the less money I make, right? And for the customer, looking out for them, the more parts we add to these lights, the less chance that guy has of having trouble-free use of these lights over the long run. As opposed to one guy's excited to spend money, one guy's excited to make money, and the two of them just make this completely stupid plan together where they're setting both of themselves up for disaster, and they're excited about it because nothing has happened yet. Because this isn't 8 months down the road. It didn't take 3-4 months to build the lights that are overly complicated. You can't even, like, I read a great builder just this morning, Facebook post. Can't seal the lights. Too much stuff inside. Well, he's been spending all this time building, and the guy's been paying a bunch of money, and now he's having a hard time sealing lights because there's so much stuff in there. So, like, you know what I mean? The further that you go, the more this stuff can get quite a bit gnarly. Dude, this is a good one. This is a ranty one for me. I could go all day on this. I want to talk about this this remote control setup and how you can actually, like, it'll be a little spoiler because I'm going to do a whole video on it. But you can reset the whole thing, delete every remote, and then you can just add like tons and tons of remotes to it. So super excited about all this stuff. Very happy that we found them. GRSTI, what up? He says hi. Hi. And board talking about stuff. LED headlight profiles suck. HIDs all the way. Word. John Paul says, my LED bulbs have got a ballast. It's actually called a driver. Doesn't really matter. Call it a ballast if you want. I'm not the word police, but just so you know. Mod Auto, the MLED 2.0 is king. So this is a cool thing. I talk a lot about how you shouldn't necessarily choose LED bulbs over HID to go into a projector, but you should absolutely consider, if you're going to do a retrofit, just swap the whole freaking projector with an LED projector. Like, I don't have any for the GTR right here, but LED projectors are nonsense. Like, they're amazing. It's ridiculous. It's not the same as putting an LED bulb in a projector that was designed for a halogen or an HID bulb. It's just designed to maximize that LED technology, and they're bright and they're super dope. So there are aftermarket projectors that will perfectly swap in with different size halogen and HID projectors. There's a lot of good stuff out there. Let's see. Sinister says, I started using a connector plug out on the 6 to 16 pin plugs, so there's no guesswork. Yeah, that's a big thing. Even like, so I have some 16 pin connectors that I've used, and they're black. And then I've got some 12 pin connectors that I use, and they're gray. Even just something as simple as that, like plug in the black connector, plug in the gray connector. Now you've got 20 things plugged in, or 30 things plugged in, or however many you need for that job. Especially if you're doing RGB products and you don't want to bridge all the RGB before the connector, which I kind of suggest because that's so many things to have on individual channels. But let's say like with XK Chrome, you want to have a whole bunch of different stuff plugged in on different zones. So you can control individually the angel eyes, turn them different colors, and then you can control the demon eyes. Well, that now is a minimum of 8 wires that have to go from the controller, generally by the battery, down to one headlight, over to the other headlight. Which also means that it's taking up 8 pins, or 2 different little 4-pin plugs. So if you've got multiple plugs, then you're like, okay, make sure you plug those ones in and those ones in, but don't swap that plug with that plug, because those ones are for RGB and that one's for ghost, right? That's when it's better to use like a 12 or 16 pin connector that you individually pin all of those wires up, plug them in together, and now you've got a whole system that's working, and there's no way to plug it in backwards. So that's a really big thing there. I definitely encourage, if you're doing crazy multiple zones on RGB, to use those bigger connectors so that you can keep all of your RGB consolidated to one group inside the thing. I think the most I've done so far, I think I've got a set of headlights that I'm putting together right now for the owner of those GTR taillights back there, and he has RGB angel eyes, RGB demon eyes, and then RGB bolts as well. So that for me is a minimum of 12 wires. So it'll be one connector just for his RGB stuff. And then it's also got ghosts. So then he's got a power ground, show mode 1 and show mode 2 connection on these lights. It's going to be terrible for me, but what it'll actually come down to is he'll have an individual 4-pin connector plug, and then he'll have one that's gray that just has all the RGB, or we'll just do it all on one 16-pin plug. So he just plugs in that one 16-pin plug, all the ghost is hooked up, all the RGB is hooked up, and he can individually control on the remote control, or on his phone on the Bluetooth, which zone does what. Bolts are blue, demon eyes are green, and then angel eyes are changing from purple to red, or whatever. Like, you can set all that stuff up on Bluetooth. But thinking that all that stuff is going to be in there, and then somebody saying like, oh, it's going to be plug and play, right? Like, yo, no way. It will have one plug, but not because it only has one plug normally. All of those parts, if you actually break it down to make that GTR build, that's going to be a ghost module. It's going to be a demon eye driver for the high beam. So one driver for the high beam. It's going to be a demon eye driver dual output for the low beams. And then it's going to be a demon eye driver dual output for the bolts. So we've got 4 modules there. Then you've got 3 more modules for the angel eyes. So we've got all of these things going on per light. DJ Boom donated €5 through Super Chat because he's a straight up gangster. But imagine that. We got 14 modules. That's kind of crazy. So with 14 modules and, you know, all of that stuff together, like, even if you label it nice, my dude does not want to spend the money that he did so that he can figure out 14 plugs, because every module's got a plug. So it's on me to bridge together all the modules that, like the demon eyes, I've got a single output and a dual output. I need to bridge those and make sure that the inputs are all going to the right color, and then I have to run all those to a plug. Super important. Nobody should have to do that. Like, that should not be a thing. If you're building custom lights, don't build them that advanced because then you got to keep track of it. And there's every single one of those pins, 16 wires, all those plugs, you know, the plug with all those in there. If anything's wrong with a single one of those, one whole function isn't going to work the way that it should. He'll either lose a whole show mode, or he'll lose the blue on his demon eyes, or he'll lose the red on the angel eyes, or whatever. Right? It's hard to make that look clean. So again, if you're messing with all this stuff, my suggestion is go with easy stuff sometimes. Check this out. This is just a little bulb, just a little LED bulb. If you want it to be switchback, then it's going to save you a lot of time to have something that complements your cool sequential build and not have to worry about internal wiring, modules, anything like that. So I say pick a cool main feature, pick like a supporting feature, and then just like little plug and play things that are easy that just kind of complement it even further. Boy, I got some reading in chat to do. DJ Boom says in his super chat, it's easy to call a builder an asshole until he tries it on his own and fails instantly. Yeah, for sure. And I should have been like, hole, but I didn't. My bad. Vincent's in the house. Chris, does LED have the same cutoff line in HID? It definitely doesn't. And hello, by the way, to you too. The deal is inside of an HID bulb, you've got a little burning gas thing, and it's shooting that light out in every direction. Some HID bulbs will have a little shield to not send it in a particular direction. But in any case, the projector is made to take all that light that's perfectly shooting in all directions and then focus it forward out through the actual little glass lens through one of these guys, which I was going to talk about earlier and totally didn't. Check this out. That is a lens from my dude Sinister. See that? So that focal length, how deep that lens actually goes, or how shallow it goes on different types of lenses, is going to focus the light inside of that projector. When it does that, if it's got LEDs and there's just one little chip that's aiming super bright in this direction, and then there's a gap, and then another super bright LED that's aiming up in this direction, now you've got two super bright light sources, and they're kind of being like focused to shoot this way. What about this little shadow area in between those LEDs? That's not going to create nearly as consistent of a pattern. And granted, they test all these things, and they're, you know, over there in China just churning out bulb after bulb after bulb, trying to make the latest and greatest and power them so that they last longer. Or a lot of the companies are just looking for numbers, so they're just like, these are the craziest LED bulbs ever, and they take the output of each chip on paper, and they're like, there's 8 of those, so it's those numbers times 8. That's the output that you're going to get from this. It's like, nah, not even close. Hey, there's David Adams. We were just talking about your lights the whole time. So my dude's lights here are insane, right? And I don't recommend people build lights that far down. They take forever to build. You could generally build 3 or 4 or 5 times the amount of lights, like having that many different customers, if you do something where it's like one big component, one little supporting component, and then you have multiple of those that you build in the time that it would take you to, say, you put this and then you put this whole other system in there. So it's got the demon eyes, and that in itself, you've got multiple drivers, you've got all this stuff that has to come together. But then on top of that, then you're going to add the angel eyes. Now you've just made the work like it's as much work as doing a whole nother build, right? And so if you are going to do that stuff, it generally doesn't scale, because there's no way that you're going to be like, well, this takes me as long as doing 5 sets of lights just to do this one, so it should cost 5 times as much. That's not a realistic thing, because what if one set of lights is $3,000, 5 sets is 15 grand? You're not going to charge one dude 15 grand for one set of lights, right? That's kind of the trade-off. So if you're a builder and you're trying to do this stuff much more frequently, and you've got a line of people that are asking you for work, then it's in your best interest and theirs to just keep it simple and repeatable, and don't show them the thing like my dude David Adams lights. Because at the end of the day, if I'm running around telling everybody, look what I did for my dude David Adams, look at his GTR, look at his taillights, look at his headlights, look at all these things, you should want this too. What's the best case scenario there? I don't know. More people are going to want me to do that. I could build maybe 3 sets of lights like those in a year, because there's no way that, number one, I'm going to be spread thin like more than that, which I don't even think I could do if I tried. But just making sure that all those dudes are good, and it's as simple as one plug. Guy gets his lights, opens them in the box, he's got his factory plug, controls all the turn signal, parking light, you know, low beam, high beam, all those things, plug in, works. He's got his dope wire harness, power and ground at the battery, 24 pins behind each light, boom, works. Sick, or 16 pins, whatever it is. But only because I spent like a week building that wire harness, only because I spent multiple weeks assembling all those parts to make sure that they all work, and then tested them for a long period of time. Not like I finish the lights, I ship them tomorrow. Like I finish the lights, test them, take pictures, take video, show him this, show him that, start documenting what's in those lights. Because if anything goes wrong and I've done it a new way that I haven't done it before, then I have to figure that out on the fly, on the phone. A lot of times it's people on a weekend hit you up because that's when they're available, even though realistically, work-wise, like, you're not doing this stuff so that you could be an all on-call doctor that gets hit up, you know, randomly 2:30 on a Sunday, you're enjoying your family, and then you get a text, drop everything right now, tell me why this isn't working. Like, yo, what if you were at your kid's birthday party? You know what I mean? So I definitely suggest keep it simple. Find the parts that you really love, that your customer really loves, that they can't live without. Use those, and maybe add a couple other easy things like oh no, dude, my turn signal bulb, it stopped working. Ah. Like, pull the bulb out, ship the guy a new bulb. He puts the new bulb in, twists it into place. Thanks, bro. Customer service on point. But what if that bulb wasn't a bulb? What if it was a ring? What if the ring itself was bad? Or even what if it is just the driver? And you're like, okay, you got to get in there. You just got to cut these 3 wires. No big deal. And then you just got to plug this one little JST connector in. They're like, I don't know how to, I don't have any soldering iron. I don't want to mess with that. Like, why don't I just ship these back to you? And you're like, yo, no, it's like, it's such a simple thing. You definitely don't want to have too much room for that to happen, because every single customer could be lots of those. Not so good. Hey, and there's JP in the house as well. So 2 monster builds right there. And actually, one of the things that I'm going to show you guys Wednesday this week, or not Wednesday because it's Tuesday now, Thursday this week, is the special module that we have for JP's lights. And all that they do, I guess it's probably simple to do with electronics. I just didn't realize it. But all that they do is they take any combo signal, like on my Lincoln Navigator, for example. I've got, you step on the brake, the taillight lights up. You hit the turn signal, that same light flashes. So it's a combo. It's a stop and a turn signal. So it takes the left and right stop lamp and turn signal, and then it takes the ground wire for that, and then it can tell if you're stepping on the brakes and it's sending power to both of those wires, it knows that you're on the brake. But if you hit the right turn signal, then it only sends power through an output wire that gives you a clean turn signal output. So it's a hard thing to describe, but basically on a Lamborghini Gallardo, you've got 3 bulbs. And depending on what function that your car is doing, running light, turn signal, or brake light, those bulbs are going to act differently. So we need to get a good clean signal for the Ghost module. And that little module is got 3 wires in, 3 wires out. So on this topic of modules and all this crazy stuff, that's yet another module that gets integrated in with the turn signal and all of this stuff. Now, I've looked in the past, and what I thought I was getting was going to be the conversion to go from the lights themselves do brake light and they do turn signal, and then that turns it into clean outputs, but it was actually opposite. So with a setup like that, that's where if your car has an individual turn signal and a brake light and you want to combine those two together, they have modules that do that. Got to make sure you buy the right one. So we'll link that one up and we'll talk about it too in the next couple days. So JP, I think that will be, that's going to be a cool thing. I think that might even get used on a Lamborghini Huracan as well. Deleted just subscribed. Interesting. That's cool that you can have a name that says deleted. Vincent, I'm glad you stopped by, my man. Have a great dinner. It's crazy that it's nighttime there, but I love it. And he said, like I said, semester is almost over, have 2 deadlines left, and still have 22 hours. Go, Vincent. Crush it, man. Excited for you. So yeah, that's kind of the whole breakdown. That's my thoughts on having all these different components in there. You know, especially like check out our Ghost modules here. These things, I mean, that's kind of been the topic of the channel, right? But we've got a wire here for programming if we choose to make that available. And then we've got all of these other wires that we've got. So for me, I like when people ask if something's plug and play. I'm like, here's what's going to be plug and play. This yellow wire and this white wire, they will be hooked in internally. And if it's a taillight, then this blue wire. So that's brake for blue, turn signal for yellow, white for running light. Those things can be integrated inside the light, but that still leaves 4 wires that need to have some sort of a connection to a wire harness. They need to have their own power and ground, because I don't want to hook power and ground up to existing ground, because what if you turn HIDs on and then it has some weird spike in voltage that fries something on here? Abby just subscribed. What up? R2D2 on my dome. Oh man. I just got what's that little move on like Fortnite and stuff where you like do the squat over someone's head? R2D2 just had his way with your man. And then I've got these two wires right here for our show modes. So that, you know, obviously those things all need to be hooked up to their own easy connection, and it's just not going to be plug and play. It can be one plug. You can plug that in and then play, but you're not just going to install them back on the car. I think I only have 2 builds for the GTR that I've ever really offered that are actually plug and play, where you just put the light in and all the magic is happening inside, because all of these crazy little modules, the wires are already connected internally to do what they're supposed to do. So definitely an interesting thing. Wakanda in class 2. Nice. William Brown says, haven't done a lot, but what I've done in the past is seal connections with rubberized electric tape. I feel like I've done everything that you could do to try to make everything easy, but most of it doesn't work. It's so weird. So much, you could go way out of your way, but sometimes this stuff is just, if it's overly complicated, you just probably shouldn't do it. John Paul says, you send them back to him with the polite note saying, you, sir, are an idiot. You can't. You can't. These are the people that fed your kids. You know what I mean? Like or in the case that it's your hobby, like they're funding your hobby to keep on going and doing cool stuff. So it's definitely like you have to look at everything from their perspective as well. And it's hard. How can you expect somebody to know all of this? You guys are watching a live stream. You're talking to a guy that's been doing this for 17 years, and they're not. Like, why would they be? I'm stoked that we have guys that pop on here like JP and David Adams and other guys that are, you know, customers that want to kind of educate themselves, or just kind of peek in and be like, what is going on with all this stuff? This is crazy things, like guys actually putting out information, like maybe I can learn a little bit more about it. Or in the case of, I know Derek is one of our guys that watches. I haven't seen him post in the last few days, probably a busy guy during the week. But in any case, when he wants to update the animations on his GTR lights, he can just plug right into them, do some work on the computer. Same thing with Slush HD. My man's going to be going nuts. He's computer savvy as can be. He's going to be able to update all of his stuff. But most customers just want to shell out bucks. Like on TikTok, when I'm posting up on there, people are like, where did you buy those lights? I'm like, bro, those lights took like, I don't know, 69 hours to build, or 63 hours, or 22 hours to build, or whatever it might be. Like, that's not going to translate. They're like, I don't know, why would you spend 22 hours on that? Why would those cost $3,000? That's crazy. Because there's zero context, right? And they don't know any of what we talked about today, and they shouldn't, because it's weird knowledge. And this is where I have a huge problem with a lot of the online groups, because every time somebody asks a question that's a reasonable question to ask, they get like completely attacked by guys that are like, you don't know, you don't know, you don't even know about the transistor that swaps the polarity and blah 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 blah. Like, bro, you are a dork if you know the answer. So have some humility when you tell the guy that's not quite as big a dork as you that here's how it works, or keep your mouth shut. You know, you don't have to like flame the guy because he asked a question that's like nobody should actually know the answer to just inherently. It's not practical knowledge. It's ridiculous. Why we know what we know is only because we're kind of infatuated with this weird little world. So otherwise you wouldn't be watching me. Tim Shields says, how much? And then your head just goes, just explodes. How much? How much for what? For that little part? For that little part? Do you want these little boomerangs here? Because that's optional. Do you want this little remote control here? Do you want this thing to be wired up to a remote? Do you want it to be wired up to the parking lights and the turn signal? Do you want this thing to be wired up so that it comes on only when your parking lights are on? Do you want it to come on with the ignition? Do you want it to come on with a remote control? Do you want it to just be hooked up to the battery all the time? Like, what do you want? The fact that they don't even know what questions to ask kind of makes it like it makes it stressful, because you know you're starting from scratch with everybody, which is why I tell you to make videos. Make videos that answers the questions you always get asked, because then they're actually seeing you, the guy that they want to have the answer from, giving them that answer. It's very intentional. It feels like you're helping them out specifically, as opposed to like sending them a link to an article or a link to my video or to somebody else's video. Like, builders should make their own Q&A, like FAQ type stuff, just for the sake of saving time and not sounding like such a jerk. Because I sound like such a jerk when I'm like, sometimes I'll just like in DMs, which is why I've stepped away from Instagram pretty hard, because people really do expect you to drop everything and then just to start from day one. It's like a college kid asking you to just start at elementary school, grade 1, let's go. I don't know. Like what is 1 + 1? Like, you're literally going back to the very beginning. And then they're like, oh, well, what about this? And then they ask you the grade 2 thing, and then they ask you the grade 3. Like, if anything, you work your way up, getting into some complicated questions, you're tying up lots of time, and then they're like, cool, thanks for answering my questions. Next year, my uncle is supposed to give me his truck that I'm going to sell, and then they give you the story about how they're going to make the money, and then I'll give you a call then. Like, sweet. I'm dead. And so you develop this kind of thick skin, this like, oh, don't ask me how much. And the guy's like, damn, bro, I was just trying to give you some business. So it's very difficult to be supportive of people asking you questions, but I encourage you to have the patience to set up some of the like automated answer stuff, so you could just send the dude a link. The link might make them feel dumb. I have a video that talks crap on people asking how much. That's why everybody, it's like I think it's just been accepted, like that's my trigger. I don't really think it is, but it's fun because like I was going hard in that video and it was like just kind of giving you inside the builder's head when you ask him how much, and he's just like, "Urgh." Crazy thing. DJ Bloom says, order today, got it yesterday. That's the best. I love when I was like, I want to order something, but how come I don't have it before I've already clicked the buy button? I want it now. You would think that that's a real thing, just based on buyer activity and all that stuff. But this was a kind of inside the builder's look. I want the builders to appreciate, though, that there's no way that a buyer is going to understand all of this crazy stuff. I'm going to give you some real heads up weirdness. So check it out. We're going to look at, maybe we're not. Look at it. Isn't that weird? Okay. This might fall. Don't fall. I'm begging you. Don't fall. Sony. It's so weird. Check us out. We're going to do some things. I'm going to take my remotes here. I'm going to push a button. Things happen. Push the button again. It doesn't turn off. Push the turn signal button. It swaps to that. Push this button. It just does a momentary. If I hold it, white will come on. If I let go, white will come off. If I want to pulse the turn signal, I can just keep on pushing B. If I want to make this thing forget all of its saved memories, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I push the button 8 times, and then guess what? These things, they don't work anymore. So let's push it twice. And then I'm gonna pair up with that guy. Now when I push it once, it turns on. Push it again, it turns off. Push it once, turn on B, stays on. Check us out. I push it just once. Now this one is going to be set up as well. But look, it's momentary. Turn that on. And then I start doing the momentary thing on this one. And then let's bring in these guys. They don't do anything yet. Let's push the button 3 times. Let's see what that does. Now this one is going to be hooked up to whatever that does. Look, it's latching. So it's only alternating between these two things. Same thing with this. It alternates between those. And I can hit it 4 times and hook up another remote. Now all of these are saving into the actual unit itself. And it's so weird. So we're gonna do a whole video on that. It will be intense. I look forward to it. Nobody should know this stuff. I actually think that because the information that's out there about this all does such a poor job at actually educating people on how to use any of these parts, they need to be remade and actually have some voice to them. Because when it just shows your man's fingers just clicking buttons, you really have to want to learn that thing in order to watch that whole video. So I'm going to be making a lot of these videos that kind of take it a step further. That'll be like the once a week stuff. Everything else, we're just going to take little cuts from these live streams, and it should be good. So, Sinister, how do I get an orange belt? You just hang in there, Hunter. You just keep on hanging in. Show up month after month. You'll be good. So any questions before we go? I want to make sure that I deliver some value. If you don't get a chance to ask it here, you can always ask it in the comment section after the video is over, if you're just watching a replay. And if you're not, definitely go hop over to Sequential Squad, because all of this stuff I'm talking about is very aimed at guys that are building sequential. Why? Is because they're already building such crazy lights. So I don't think that you should have some crazy switchback sequential lights, and then on top of that add in your addressable RGB, and then on top of that add in some regular RGB, like for demon eyes, like for these crazy little honeycomb projector lenses, and then on top of that add in a strobe unit. Like, pick two. Pick a main one, pick a supporting thing that goes with it, like some switchback parts, maybe switchback angel eyes that are like plug and play. Dude's always got cool aftermarket options just by plugging the lights in, but then by plugging in the cool little 4-pin connector on the back, now he's got Ghost, Show Mode 1 and 2. You know what I mean? DJ Boom says DRLs. That's what we're talking about this week too. And DJ Boom is now color changed for the second time, which is great because my guy didn't start shooting them yet. But he wants to do a dark gray metallic on his GTR DRLs, which is dope. Let's see. Jake says, I has question. Why is you an awesome Who man? Who man? I don't know. I'm just built this way. Chris working on my SS courses. Sequential Squad. Yeah, buddy. We're gonna be diving in. A red belt is really expensive. Yeah, man. Over the course of time. David Davis says, anyone from public safety ever approach you? So there's nothing to really approach me about, because at the end of the day, like, public safety, no matter what happens with any of this stuff, if you throw on some blue license plate bulbs, right? You're breaking the law to the same extent as somebody that has like an RGB underglow that's changing colors, or RGB demon eyes, or whatever it is. You can have that on your car, you just can't be driving around with it on. So if you've got some blue LED bulbs on your license plate, you can't really turn those off. Like, you're driving at night, they're blue, right? So many people do that stuff. Do you know that you can buy those bulbs at like crazy amounts of automotive places? Pep Boys, different stuff like that. Companies have been making this stuff for a really long time, and they don't give you any knowledge about what it actually is that you're creating. So if you create some cool looking little hood vent, or the little windshield wiper lights, and you're like making your whole theme, but you don't run those to a switch, and they don't say anything about that on the packaging, if that's the case, then yeah, you're gonna get in trouble. And I'm guessing that they're not going to be approached by public safety or anything like that. But when it comes to not breaking the law and enhancing the lights of, you know, the look of things like that, that's kind of the refined question on here. It just comes down to, like, they don't want to encourage you to go be unique. Like, most things that I find are, they're wanting you to just comply, just don't make waves, don't mess around. there's lots of videos. Like I watched one where a cop is just absolutely harassing this dude about his amber running lights, because the guy didn't realize, the officer didn't realize that you're able to have amber on the front, amber and white. That's the law, right? But he was telling the guy that you're not allowed to change anything. Isn't the case, right? And obviously this varies state by state, country by country, which for me, I talk a lot about how you can do things. And then I'm like, but if you're in Europe and you're watching this thing about how I'm telling you how to animate your red LED turn signals on your brake lights, like that doesn't apply to you. It can't, because in wherever you're from, you know, like let's just say you're in UK, you can't do it. You're in Germany, you can't do it. You got to have amber. It has to be amber. Well, in those countries, you can have sequential amber turn signals, right? And they can start from one LED and fan out from there. Well, guess what? In the US, you can't have that, because the surface area of that turn signal needs to at least be so big when it initially turns on, so that it's enough of an impact based on our laws, so that it can tell the person behind you, hey, your turn signal's on and you're about to move. But if the LED is just one big, then it's not street legal, which is why you have certain Lexus cars that the Euro versions have sequential turn signals. In the States, we don't have those. It just depends. It's all over the place. So there's no like one size fits all, and no one's keeping track of this. Not the builders aren't keeping track of all the stuff that you can do. And so there's certainly, like, have you ever heard the phrase like good enough for government? Yo, they're not at the forefront of technology when it comes to automotive lighting, I promise. So in any case, there's some stuff that you should have at the top of your head if you need to, but like, I don't know, you really don't need to convince a cop of anything in the first place. He's just doing his job. He's like, I don't know, I think that looks probably pretty wonky. I'm just gonna cite you for it. Like, you can go fight that ticket, tell the judge. That's his job, to sit there and look at this and look at that and make the decision, not the cop. You might be able to talk to the dude, he might be cool, but if you're cruising down the street with purple and green, I don't know, you're kind of stupid. You could have deserved that ticket in the first place. So that's a big thing to me. So yeah, and that's the thing too, is like, you guys, David Adams just said public safety wouldn't want to spend the money. Because seriously, like, what, at the end of the day, there are big real problems going on, especially right now. The stuff that's going on is kind of like, it's actually a thing. You always know that there's a pretty balance shift happening when you go into like a super fancy neighborhood and you get pulled over for every little thing, because my man's not got way more pressing things happening. But if you're down in the ghetto and you hit those turn signals and they're all crazy and doing something like that and the cop's never seen it before, he's not going to pull you over to ask you questions about it. Probably not, because he's got actual things going down that are keeping him busy. And that's just my interpretation of it from, I mean, I've been pulled out of cars and stuck on the curb and watched my car get driven off on a flatbed. I've had the coolest cops in the world. I've had guys chew me out in front of my wife and not give me a second to reply. It's just humans being humans, not cops or, you know, civilian stuff. It's going to be different. At the end of the day, the government is not going to be following what the latest and greatest trends are. They're trying to keep up as it is. So a lot of people are very scared when it comes to like, well, what if I do this and it's not allowed? It's like, they don't even know if it's allowed. Like, most anybody doesn't even know what it is. So I just encourage people, like, check out your own laws, and then maybe it's just something like, if being pulled over is the scariest thing that could ever happen to you, maybe just stay stock. I don't know. Maybe not get into cars, because like everything that you do in California is, you know, against the rules. So I do make a lot of my builds, and a lot of the stuff that I show people, especially for the customer to want to be able to buy it, is like trouble free, right? Here's this dope thing. You can use it. You're not going to get hassled for it. And that's not a guarantee. It's not, maybe that cop had a bad day. He's never seen sequential turn signals on a GTR, and he's pissed off that he doesn't have a GTR. You're getting pulled over today. I don't know. I can't read the future or anything. But I can say that if they're turning purple and green, your chances are much higher of getting in trouble for the cool stuff that you have that you do not have to have on while you're driving. It's always just like the example I use about, can your car go 120 miles an hour? Do you normally drive your car 120 miles an hour? Do you have the ability to do something that you're not supposed to do? Oh, you do have that ability, but you're not abusing it? Cool. That's how all this works. Same thing, right? I think that's, in a nutshell, what I want everybody to understand. You have the ability to do cool things. It might be fun things. They might be exhilarating things, but you shouldn't go do them just because you can, because that happens to actually break certain rules, like driving down the street, trying to show off, changing colors of your lights. By the way, most people aren't going to freak out and be like, look at that guy, he's got color changing lights. But if you're driving through traffic and you've got some dope blinking lights or turn signals or sequential or something, heads are going to turn for sure. And you're not breaking any rules. You're going to actually enjoy all those head turns. So should be a good thing. David says GTR gets approached by cops when not even moving. Man, some of my guys, I know TJ Hunt posted up a video recently when he was driving and he had a cop pull him over and just asked him if it would be okay if he pulled him over. Can I just check this thing out really quick? I know who you are. I love what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. Wanted to check out his car. Cops are some of the dopest people that I've ever met. Most of the people when I bought my house here, my initial group that I started kind of getting together with to do cool modifications on their car so I could take pictures and video, bunch of cops that had GTRs. It was dope. And like, they were very much into the scene, into the cars, into all that stuff. Some of the coolest people ever. So, you know, obviously this stuff is going to be different. You might have a guy in a country pull you out of the car at gunpoint and be like, what are you doing? You're not allowed to have that, and impound your car, send you to jail, and it's going to be a bad time for you because you decided to do stuff that you weren't supposed to do. I don't know, man. I don't live in that country. So if that's what happens, like, maybe build lights and ship them to other countries, not build them for your neighbor, you know? I think it's going to be different for everybody. More like, how loud is that GTR? For sure. Lots of this stuff, we're already, you know, you're already getting so much attention to most of the cars that even go down the path to the point to have crazy lights to begin with. Very few cars have I ever done, especially GTRs, where the first modification is lights. I've done one with 500 miles on it. Guy got the car, brought it off to me and had it for a few days. First thing he ever had done to it was super cool lights. Went back to him and I don't know, whatever happened, happened. For the most part, cars are super modified by the time they get lights in the first place, which is why I bring things up about fender liners and stuff like that and existing stuff. We bear the burden as custom headlight builders as the guy that's the scapegoat for everybody else who ever works on the car, because wiring scares people, which is why I say, if you have all of these modules, to tie a bow on this live today, because I'm gonna get back to it, to tie a bow on it, if you do all of this wiring and you hook it up to a dope single connector and it's easy for that shop to do, it's easy for the customer to bring to the shop, there's no back and forth, there's no diagnosing, nothing crazy has to be figured out, they're gonna be like, damn, that guy's on point. That guy's a straight G. If there's an issue with the part, they're probably not gonna be like, well, I don't know, those headlights had 15 connectors coming out the back of them. I bet you it's that. I bet you those things are causing problems, because I've never seen anything like that. Of course they've never seen anything like that. They've never seen any of this stuff anyway. Why would they? They're like, eBay lights, plug and play. eBay lights, plug and play. Oh, there's one wire you have to connect. Cool, done, got it. We did custom lights. You get like a Jeep shop that does lots of Jeeps. They're like, okay, yeah, we're gonna do all these custom lights on this Jeep. They're like, out of the box, bracket, vehicle specific, plug specific, everything's made for it. A monkey could do it. Boom, 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 boom. We do custom lights. Yeah, but it's not exactly. You can turn wrenches, I give you that. So you don't want to be the scapegoat. Make it more difficult to be the scapegoat by doing the extra stuff, or just by making things easy, plug and play, keep it inside the light, self-contained, add much less moving parts inside, especially systems. Stuff that's plug and play is really cool to add with remote controlled or Bluetooth controlled RGB. Just because one function already works without pulling out the remote, it's when you get into addressable and switchback and regular RGB and regular sequential. You've got 4 different systems that have to work together, and HID, 5 systems working together. Sketch. Not good. All right, well, David Adams, Sinister, David Davis, Ganman, who retracted his message twice, And Chris Bowen. Nice to see you, man. You should hang out more, Mr. Chris Bowen. For off-road use only is a very overly used thing for people to say it's your problem. I'd rather just tell somebody it's your problem, instead of like hide behind some like, oh well, policy says blah blah blah. I'm like, I just would rather them know. I'd rather make a whole big long video or talk for an hour on a live stream, dive way into how, if they want to know why, here's all the things and all the reasons why it could possibly be what it is, as opposed to just being like, just that kind of the lazy hide behind something. I don't want to hide behind anything. I'd rather everybody know what's going down, if they care to know. And if they don't, they probably shouldn't be watching live streams with all the answers. And Tim Shield says 4 different remotes. It's a great side effect of having too many parts, too many remotes. You got the one that controls the addressable, the one that controls the regular, got the one that turns on and off the ghost module. Too many things are not good, in my opinion, from my experience, from lots and lots and lots and lots of failure. So yeah, we'll talk more about that stuff throughout the week. This video is going to be dope coming up on the little remote control thing, so I think that'll just be a nice, entertaining, quick little video. Not so much going through all the ins and outs, but more just like, overview, dope thing, you should use it. Here's how you do this, this, and this. Peace. That's going to be the video. Tim says, fit those in your pocket with your GTR key fob. Just don't confuse them. I'm telling you, don't go losing those key fobs. Don't wear jeans where when you sit down, everything slides out of your pocket, or little shorts or whatever. It's not a good thing. Jake says, I've actually been given chef's kiss by local cops for my car. Chef's kiss? I don't know what that's all about. You lost me there, Jake. You've been given chef's kiss by local cops for my car. If that's what you meant to say, I'm happy for you. Guys, I'm going to see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. PST. Thank you for joining. Thanks for hanging out. I had to turn off the circus music. I was trying. I was just trying to get through it, and I was like, nah, this is too much. We got more stuff on David Adams' taillights this week because I wanted to do all the remote control stuff before I send those things off to him, so he's got everything that he needs, and then he'll be tying in the headlights that he has that I talked about today into that crazy system as well, and it'll be easy for him because that's how we're doing things. Build it all out, make it easy for everybody else, make it easy for you guys to learn how to do it so you don't got to fail like I have. That's the point. Anyway, I'm out of here. You guys have a lovely Tuesday. Thanks for joining me yesterday. And again, if you're not going to be able to watch until weekends, I'll be at 9 a.m. this coming weekend. For everybody else, weekdays, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'll see you here. If you watch through this whole thing as a replay, comment below. Watch the whole thing in the comment section on the replay. I'm out of here. Peace. See you guys in the morning.